Rain fell over Grace Hill Cemetery like a prayer no one remembered how to speak. Maya Jackson knelt beside a weathered headstone, her fingers tracing letters worn smooth by 10 years of storms. Grace Margaret Cole, beloved wife, devoted mother, gone too soon. The marble felt cold beneath her palm, but she whispered anyway. Words meant for the dead, because lately they were the only ones who listened. I brought your favorites again, Grace. White roses. You always said they meant new beginnings. Maya's voice cracked slightly. I could use one of those. Another day, Grace. Another empty one. Lightning split the sky. In that flash of white, Maya saw him. A small boy, no more than 8, running through the graves. His clothes clung to his thin frame. His eyes were wide with terror that had nothing to do with the storm. Then came the headlights. A black car skidded on the wet road, hydroplaning towards the boy who stood frozen at the cemetery gate. Maya didn't think. She threw herself forward, her knees slamming into gravel as she grabbed the child and rolled them both clear. The car shrieked to a halt, inches from where they'd been. The boy trembled in her arms, silent. Not crying, just shaking, like something inside him had shattered long before tonight. It's okay, Maya whispered, pulling him close. You're safe now. You're safe. But he didn't speak, didn't even look at her. He just buried his face in her shoulder and held on like she was the only solid thing left in the world. At the police station, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The boy, still unnamed, still silent, sat pressed against Maya's side, his small hand clutching her sleeve. The officer shook his head. No ID, no reports of missing children matching his description. We'll have to call social services. He needs a hospital, Maya said quietly. We tried. He won't let anyone touch him. Except you. A door opened. The room fell still. The man who entered didn't walk. He moved like gravity itself had learned to wait for him. Tall, silver-threaded hair, a suit that cost more than most people's cars. Harrison Cole. Even in a police station, his presence commanded the room. The man who'd built Cole Automotive from his father's failing garage into a luxury car empire worth billions. But it was his eyes that struck Maya. Empty. Controlled. A man who'd learned to bury everything that hurt. Harrison Cole stopped when he saw the boy. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Recognition? Pain? It vanished before Maya could name it. You saved him, he said. His voice was quiet, precise, each word measured like currency. Maya met his gaze. No, sir. I just reminded him the living are still worth saving. Harrison went completely still. Those words, that exact phrase. Grace used to say it, standing in their garden with dirt on her hands and hope in her eyes, back when the world still made sense. Before the accident, before the funeral, before he locked every door in his heart and threw away the key. Mr. Cole, the psychologist said gently, breaking the silence. The boy's been through severe trauma, nonverbal signs of prolonged stress. But he's calm with Ms. Jackson. If we separate them now, he could regress significantly. Harrison looked at the boy, then at Maya. She didn't flinch under his scrutiny, just sat there with her arm around a child she'd known for less than an hour, offering him the kind of safety Harrison had forgotten how to give. Then they both come with me, Harrison said quietly. The officer blinked. Sir, my estate has medical staff, space, whatever he needs. Harrison's jaw tightened. And apparently he needs her. Maya opened her mouth to protest, but the boy's grip on her sleeve tightened. She looked down at his pale, frightened face, and something in her chest, something that had been locked away since the day she buried her own daughter, cracked open. Just until he's stable, she heard herself say. Harrison nodded once, then turned toward the door. My car is outside. That night, the black car disappeared into the rain, carrying a grieving billionaire who'd learned to live in silence, a broken woman who'd forgotten how to dream, and a silent boy who somehow needed them both. Behind them, Grace Hill Cemetery stood empty, but Maya's flowers remained on Grace Cole's grave, bright against the dark. Greywood Manor rose from the hillside like a monument to everything that used to matter. Maya stood in the entrance hall, water still dripping from her coat, and felt the weight of 10 years' silence pressing down from the vaulted ceiling. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, rooms too large and too empty, like a museum of someone else's happiness. Eli, the name on the boy's hospital bracelet, hid behind her legs, his small hand gripping her skirt. The guest wing is this way, Harrison said, his voice echoing in the vast space. He didn't look at them as he spoke. Mrs. Chen, my housekeeper, prepared rooms. There's medical equipment if needed. The boy, Eli, will have the room next to yours. Maya noticed what he didn't say. Not your room and his, not the nursery, as if even the word would shatter something. Thank you, Mr. Cole, she said softly. He paused at the base of the stairs, his back still to them. I'll have papers drawn up. Temporary guardianship. Compensation for your time. I don't want... Everyone wants something, Ms. Jackson. The words weren't cruel, just tired. The voice of a man who'd learned that lesson too many times. Maya started to respond, but Eli tugged her hand. She looked down. He was staring at a portrait on the wall, a woman with kind eyes and a little boy who looked about his age, both of them laughing in a garden filled with light. Harrison followed their gaze. His expression went carefully blank. That was a long time ago, he said quietly. Then he walked upstairs without another word. That night, Maya sat in the unfamiliar guest room, listening to the house settle around her. Everything here was expensive, beautiful, cold, like someone had tried to build a home and ended up with a mausoleum instead. Through the adjoining door, she could hear Eli's uneven breathing. Still awake, still afraid. She moved to his room and found him curled in the corner, staring at nothing. Hey, sweetheart, Maya whispered, sitting on the floor beside him. Can't sleep? He didn't answer. Hadn't spoken a single word since the cemetery. So Maya did what she used to do for her daughter, back when monsters hid under beds and tomorrow felt impossibly far away. She began to hum. A lullaby. Simple. Gentle. The kind her grandmother taught her, passed down through generations of women who knew that sometimes love is just showing up and refusing to leave. Eli's breathing slowed. His eyes drifted closed. Maya kept humming, her voice soft in the darkness. 3 floors above, in his study, Harrison Cole stood frozen at his desk. He could hear it through the ventilation system. That melody, floating up from the guest wing like a ghost. Grace used to sing that song, every night, tucking their son into bed. Her voice warm and sure, promising that morning always came, that love was stronger than fear, that they'd always be together. She'd been wrong about that last part. Harrison's hand trembled as he reached for the whiskey decanter. He poured 3 fingers, drank it in one swallow, and didn't allow himself to feel anything at all. But upstairs, in a room he hadn't entered in a decade, dust motes danced in the moonlight filtering through closed curtains. A nursery door stood locked. And somewhere deep in the house's bones, something fragile, something he'd thought dead, began to crack open. Morning came to Greywood Manor the way it always did, quietly, reluctantly, as if even the sun wasn't sure it was welcome. Maya woke to find Eli already awake, sitting at the window, watching clouds drift across the valley below. He still hadn't spoken. But when she touched his shoulder, he leaned into her hand, and that felt like progress. "Let's find some breakfast," she said gently. The kitchen was enormous, industrial, clearly designed for staff that no longer existed. Mrs. Chen, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and an efficient manner, had left fresh fruit and pastries on the counter. But Maya noticed the pantry, fully stocked, barely touched. The refrigerator filled with ingredients no one cooked, all the tools of a home, with none of the warmth. She started simple: scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice in mismatched glasses because the crystal ones felt too fragile. Eli watched her move around the kitchen, his dark eyes tracking every gesture. "You know what my mama used to say?" Maya asked, whisking eggs. "She said a house isn't a home until someone burns the toast at least once." She set a plate in front of him. He stared at it for a long moment, then picked up his fork. One small bite. Then another. Maya's throat tightened. Such a simple thing. Feeding a hungry child, but it felt like witnessing a resurrection. Then Eli did something unexpected. He began tapping his fork against the plate. Not random noise, but rhythm. Complex, syncopated rhythm that shifted and evolved like jazz improvisation. His eyes distant, lost in the music only he could hear. Maya froze, goosebumps rising on her arms. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression stunned. "In 10 years working here, I've never—" She trailed off. "Mr. Cole's son used to do that, exactly that. The doctor said he had perfect pitch, could hear music and everything." Eli stopped abruptly, as if realizing he'd revealed something he meant to keep hidden. Harrison found them in the garden that afternoon. Not the formal gardens near the house. Those were maintained by professionals, perfect and lifeless. They were in the old section, the one that had gone wild when Grace died, where roses tangled with weeds and the fountain had stopped running. Maya was on her knees in the dirt, clearing space around a struggling rosebush. Eli sat nearby, drawing in a sketchbook Mrs. Chen had found in storage. Harrison meant to walk past. He had calls to return, board meetings to prepare for, a company to run. His time was measured in millions of dollars per hour, and he didn't waste it watching strangers garden. But then Maya laughed. Soft, genuine, and something in that sound stopped him. "Look at this," she said to Eli, holding up a bloom she'd uncovered. "Still fighting, still beautiful even when nobody's watching." Eli tilted his head, studying the flower. Then, carefully, he began to draw it. Maya glanced up and saw Harrison standing there. She didn't startle, didn't apologize for being somewhere she shouldn't be. She just met his gaze with that same quiet strength she'd shown at the police station. "The garden needed attention," she said simply. "I have staff for that." "You have staff for everything, Mr. Cole, but some things need hands that care, not hands that are paid." Harrison's jaw tightened. He should fire her for that, for the presumption, for reminding him that his entire life had become a transaction. Instead, he said, "Eli seems comfortable with you." Children know when they're safe, when someone sees them instead of looking through them. And you see him. I see a boy who's been hurt, who's lost something he doesn't have words for. Maya's voice gentled. "I know what that looks like." Harrison wanted to ask what she'd lost, but the question felt too intimate, too close to his own locked rooms, so he just nodded and walked away. Behind him, Maya returned to her roses. Eli kept drawing. The ocean, a dog, a woman with a soft smile who looked like Maya. And in each picture, just barely visible in the corner, a tall figure standing in shadow, watching. The days began to blur into routine. Maya hummed while she cooked. Eli drew while she gardened. Slowly, Laughter echoed in hallways that had been silent for years. Psor, Chen smiled more. The house staff stopped walking like they were in a museum. Even Harrison found himself pausing at odd moments, hearing music where there'd been only quiet, smelling fresh bread instead of emptiness, feeling something in his chest that wasn't quite hope, but wasn't despair either. One evening, Maya found him in the hallway outside Eli's room, standing as if rooted. "He won't mind if you say goodnight," she said softly. "I don't—" Harrison stopped. "I haven't been good at this. Not for a long time. Being good at something isn't the same as doing it anyway." She pushed the door open. Eli was already in bed, his sketchbook beside him. Harrison stepped inside, uncertain. "Good night, Eli." The boy looked up. For the first time, his expression wasn't afraid, just curious. Waiting. Harrison's hands curled into fists at his sides. "Sleep well?" He left quickly, not trusting himself to say more. But Eli turned to the page he'd been working on and kept drawing. 3 figures holding hands beneath a tree, the lines uncertain but hopeful. Maya showed the drawings to Harrison a few days later, spreading them across his desk. The ocean, the dog, the woman with the kind smile, and the newest one, 3 people, connected. "Children remember warmth," she said, "even when they forget faces." Harrison stared at the images. He hasn't spoken. Not yet, but he's trying to tell us something. What? Maya picked up the drawing of 3 figures. That he wants to stay. That this feels like it could be home. Harrison's expression shuddered. "This isn't... Ms. Jackson, you're here temporarily, until we find his family or suitable placement. This isn't permanent." Maybe it should be. The words hung between them, too large and too fragile. "You don't know what you're asking," Harrison said finally. "I know a child who needs—" "I can't." His voice cracked, just slightly. "I already lost. I can't do this again." Maya studied him. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and built empires but couldn't walk into a child's room without his hands shaking. "Then don't do it for Eli," she said quietly. "Do it because somewhere inside, you're still that person in the portrait downstairs, the one who knew how to laugh." Before he could respond, the door opened. Charlotte Wynne stood in the threshold, perfectly tailored and dangerously calm. Her smile was sharp enough to cut. "Harrison, darling," she said, her gaze sliding to Maya. "I wasn't aware we were having guests. Have you ever noticed how the people who threaten our peace always arrive with a smile? If this story is pulling at your heart, subscribe so you never miss these moments where kindness battles everything trying to destroy it." Charlotte Wynne was the kind of beautiful that came with a price tag. Designer clothes, perfect posture, a smile practiced in mirrors until it looked effortless. She was also Harrison's fiancée, an arrangement made by their families years ago, back when he was too numb to care who stood beside him, and she was too ambitious to pass up the Cole fortune. They were supposed to marry in the fall. A merger disguised as matrimony. "Charlotte," Harrison said, his voice carefully neutral. "You weren't due back until next week." "I finished in Paris early. Thought I'd surprise you." Her eyes never left Maya. "And who is this?" "Miss Jackson is helping with Eli." "Eli?" Harrison's jaw tightened. "A child, temporarily in my care?" Charlotte's smile widened, but something cold flickered behind it. "How charitable of you, darling, playing father again." The words landed like a slap. Maya watched Harrison's expression close completely, every emotion locked behind steel. This was a man who'd learned to bleed inward, to let nothing show. "Ms. Jackson?" he said quietly. "You may go." Maya gathered the drawings and left, but not before catching Charlotte's gaze following her, assessing, calculating, threatened. That night, Charlotte stood at her window in the East Wing, watching the gardens below. She saw Maya walking with Eli, their hands clasped. Saw the boy point at fireflies and Maya crouch beside him, her face lit with gentle joy. Saw Harrison standing on his balcony 3 floors up, watching them too. A family scene. Intimate. Warm. Everything Charlotte had tried for 3 years to create with Harrison, only to hit the wall of his grief again and again. And this woman, this nobody from a cemetery, had walked in and done it in a week. Charlotte's fingers tightened on her wine glass. No, she'd worked too hard, positioned herself too carefully, sacrificed too much to lose it all to some inspirational little housemaid playing Mother Teresa. If Harrison wanted warmth, Charlotte would give him fire. She picked up her phone and made a call. The man Charlotte hired was expensive, discreet, and very good at finding leverage. Within 48 hours, he delivered a file thick with Maya's history. The divorce, the daughter's death, the small charity she'd tried to start, Grace's Light, named after her daughter, that folded when the hospital bills became insurmountable. All of it tragic, all of it real, and all of it perfect for Charlotte's purposes. She started subtly, a comment here, a question there. "Harrison, darling, have you vetted this woman? You know how people can be around wealth." "She seems devoted to Eli, almost strategic, don't you think?" "I heard she tried to start a charity once, for money. How interesting that she's suddenly so close to someone who could fund it." Harrison dismissed it at first. Maya had asked for nothing except permission to tend the garden and cook for Eli, but Charlotte was patient. She'd learned that destruction worked best when built slowly, like termites eating a foundation from the inside. The board meeting was supposed to be routine. Quarterly reports, budget approvals, the usual theater of corporate governance. Then Marcus Reeves, Harrison's chief technology officer, dropped the bomb. "The Phantom 7 prototype leaked. Design specs, engineering blueprints, everything. Showed up on a competitor's desk 3 days ago." The room went silent. Harrison's voice was ice. "How?" "We're investigating. But the leak came from inside, someone with high-level access." "Who had access to those files?" Marcus hesitated. 17 people, including your personal assistant, your head of security, and... He glanced at Charlotte, your fiancée. Charlotte's expression remained serene. "And apparently, anyone Ms. Jackson might have encountered in your study, darling. You've been rather open with your home recently." Harrison's eyes narrowed. "Maya Jackson has never been in my study unsupervised." "Are you certain?" Charlotte tilted her head. "Mrs. Chen mentioned she brings Eli there sometimes when you're working. Children do love to touch things." "It was a masterpiece of suggestion. Nothing provable, everything plausible." Harrison said nothing, but something dark flickered across his face. That evening, Charlotte made her final move. She'd recorded one of Maya's phone calls, a conversation with Grace's Light Foundation, the defunct charity she'd once tried to save. Except Charlotte had edited it, cut and spliced until innocent words became damning. Maya's voice, warm and hopeful. "I'll gain his trust, and then the money will follow, for all the children who need it." Out of context, with strategic pauses, it sounded like a con artist laying plans. Charlotte played it during dinner, her phone casually on the table. Harrison heard 3 words: trust, money, children. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What is that?" Charlotte widened her eyes, innocent. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I'd turned off my messages. That's... Well, how embarrassing. Forget you heard anything." But Harrison had already picked up the phone, replaying the recording. Maya's voice. Those words. And suddenly, every kindness looked like calculation. Every smile, strategy, every moment of warmth, a well-played con. He'd been here before. His brother's business partner, who'd stolen millions while pretending friendship. His wife's best friend, who'd sold stories to tabloids after Grace died. A lifetime of learning that trust was just another word for weakness. Harrison stood abruptly. "Excuse me?" He walked to his study, the recording playing on loop in his mind. For 20 minutes, he sat at his desk, staring at nothing. Part of him, the part that had started to heal, started to hope, whispered that this didn't make sense. Maya had asked for nothing, had given everything, had looked at Eli with the kind of love that couldn't be faked. His hand reached for the phone to call her, to ask for an explanation. Then Charlotte appeared in the doorway. "I'm sorry you had to hear that, darling. I know you've grown fond of her." She moved closer, her voice gentle, poisonous. "But you've been through so much. Lost so much. You deserve someone you can trust." "She's good with Eli. She's good at pretending. That's different." Charlotte perched on the edge of his desk. "You know what I think? I think she researched you, found out about Grace, about your son, knew exactly which wounds to touch. It's textbook manipulation. Find a grieving man, offer him a glimpse of what he lost, then cash in." "You don't know that. Don't I? Why else would a cemetery caretaker refuse payment, refuse help, refuse everything, except access to your home, your child, your life?" She touched his hand. "She's waiting for the perfect moment to ask, and when she does, it'll be for something big. Something you can't refuse without looking like a monster." The words burrowed deep, finding every insecurity Harrison had spent a decade building. Charlotte stood. "But it's your choice, darling. Keep her if you want. I just thought you deserved to know what I found, before you're hurt again." She left him there, alone with his demons and his doubts. By morning, Harrison had convinced himself that firing Maya was protection, not cowardice. He was wrong, but he wouldn't realize it until it was almost too late. Maya was singing when Harrison appeared in the doorway. That same lullaby, her voice soft in the darkness. Eli was already asleep, his small hand curled around hers. She looked up, smiling. "He had a nightmare earlier, but I think he's settled now. We need to talk." The coldness in his voice made her smile fade. She carefully extracted her hand from Eli's, tucked the blanket around him, and followed Harrison into the hallway. He closed the door with deliberate care, then turned to face her. "How much?" he said quietly. "I don't understand. How much did you plan to ask for? The charity? Grace's light?" He watched her face go pale and felt nothing. "Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." Maya's breath caught. "Mr. Cole, I brought you here because Eli needed stability. I thought you were helping him. Was any of it real?" "All of it was real." "Then explain why you're recorded saying you'd gain my trust to get money." The words hit like a physical blow. Maya actually stepped back, her hand bracing against the wall. "That's not... I never..." She stopped, understanding dawning. "Someone recorded me? When? Does it matter?" "Yes." Her voice cracked. "Because I've been trying to restart Grace's light for 2 years. I call donors, explain what happened, ask if they'd reconsider. I've never mentioned you, never planned to, never even thought..." "Then where did this come from?" He played the recording. Maya listened, horror blooming across her face as she heard her own words twisted into something unrecognizable. The conversation she'd had with an old donor, talking about building relationships with the community, turned into evidence of manipulation. "That's not what I said. That's been edited, cut apart." "How convenient." "Mr. Cole, please." "Harrison." She blinked. "What?" You called me Harrison, 2 weeks ago in the garden, when Eli fell and scraped his knee. You called me Harrison, not Mr. Cole." His voice stayed flat, but something raw flickered beneath it. I let myself believe that meant something. Maya's eyes filled. It did mean something. It means everything. "Harrison, I would never." "Everyone wants something, Miss Jackson. I told you that the first night." He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Your severance? Compensation for your time? There's also a recommendation letter for your charity, if you'd like to use my name. I imagine that's worth more than whatever you might have gotten by staying." The envelope hung between them, an ending made of paper and pride. "I never wanted your money," Maya whispered. "Only for this house to breathe again, for that little boy to have a chance, for you to—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "I never wanted anything but that." "Then you're the first." Harrison set the envelope on the hallway table and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Maya stood there, tears streaming down her face, holding nothing but her own shattered heart. Morning came too early and too bright. Maya packed in silence, folding the few belongings she'd brought. A change of clothes, her grandmother's Bible, a photograph of her daughter that lived in her wallet, creased from carrying. Ms. Martha, Chen appeared in the doorway, eyes red. "He's wrong about you," the housekeeper said quietly. "I've worked here 10 years. I know what kindness looks like, and I know what lies look like. You were never lying." "It doesn't matter what I know, only what he believes." "And Eli?" Maya's hands stilled on her suitcase. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him yourself." Maya looked up. Eli stood in the hallway, still in his pajamas, his expression confused and hurt. He held his sketchbook clutched against his chest, her throat closed. "Hey, sweetheart." He didn't move, just stared at her suitcase, at the reality of leaving written in packed clothes and zipped bags. "I have to go," Maya said softly, kneeling in front of him. "But you're going to be okay. Mr. Cole will take care of you. Mrs. Chen will take care of you. You're safe here." Eli's eyes welled with tears, the first emotion she'd seen beyond fear since the cemetery. He opened his sketchbook, flipped to a new page, and held it up. The drawing was simple but devastating. 2 figures holding hands, torn apart by a jagged line. On one side, Maya. On the other, Eli and Harrison, separate and alone. Beneath it, in shaky letters that must have taken him hours, "Don't cut it." Maya's vision blurred. "Oh, baby, I'm not choosing this, I'm not—" But Eli had already run down the hallway, his small feet pounding against marble floors. She heard a door slam. Silence. Maya picked up the drawing with trembling hands and walked downstairs. Harrison was in his study, surrounded by contracts and reports, burying himself in work the way he always did when feeling threatened the edges. Maya didn't knock. She simply walked in and placed Eli's drawing on his desk. "He drew this for you," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. "I thought you should see what you're cutting." Harrison looked at the image. The torn figures. The desperate plea in a child's handwriting. Something in his chest twisted, sharp and immediate. "Ms. Jackson, I'm leaving. You made your choice and I respect it. But that little boy upstairs, he's already been cut away from everyone who mattered. His parents, his home, whatever life he had before. And now you're doing it again. I'm protecting him. From what? From someone who loves him? From a woman who sits up at night when he has nightmares and sings until he feels safe? From the first person who made this house feel like something other than a tomb?" Her voice broke. "You're not protecting him, Harrison. You're protecting yourself." The accusation hung between them, true and terrible. "You don't know what you're talking about," Harrison said, but the words came out hollow. I know what it looks like when someone chooses fear over love. I did it myself after my daughter died. I pushed everyone away, built walls, told myself it was safer to feel nothing than risk feeling everything again. Maya's eyes met his. But you know what? She'd be ashamed of me for hiding, for letting her death kill the parts of me that she loved most. Harrison's jaw clenched. Don't. Your son wouldn't want this. Your wife wouldn't want this. This empire of emptiness you've built, this isn't a memorial to them. It's a betrayal of everything they loved about you. Get out. The words came out raw, barely controlled. Maya nodded slowly. I'm going. But before I do, I want you to know something. I fell in love with that little boy upstairs. And I fell in love with the man I saw glimpses of. The one who stood in the garden and almost smiled. Who read Eli bedtime stories when he thought no one was listening. Who kept Grace's favorite roses alive even though looking at them hurt. Harrison's hands curled into fists on the desk. That man is still in there, Maya continued softly. Under all this ice and fear and money, and if you'd let yourself believe it, you'd see I never wanted anything except to remind him he exists. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. I hope someday you trust again, Harrison. Not me. I know that's done. But someone. Anyone. Before you spend the rest of your life locked in this beautiful empty house, wondering why it never feels like home. Then she was gone. Harrison sat in the silence, staring at Eli's drawing. 3 figures, torn apart. Don't cut it. His hand reached for the whiskey decanter but stopped. He picked up the phone instead and dialed his head of security. The leak. I want a full forensic audit. Every access point, every login, every goddamn keystroke. And I want it by tomorrow. Sir, that's tomorrow, Harrison repeated and hung up. He looked at the drawing again, at the 3 figures who could have been, should have been, whole. And for the first time in 10 years, Harrison Cole allowed himself to wonder if he'd been wrong. Maya stood at the entrance to Grace Home Orphanage, the afternoon sun warm on her shoulders. The building was small, underfunded, barely holding together. Paint peeled from window frames. The playground equipment had seen better decades. But inside, 23 children had beds, meals, and staff who cared. She'd called in a favor, an old friend from her nursing days who ran the place, and was now volunteering 3 days a week. Cleaning, cooking, reading stories, doing the work that never paid, but always mattered. It wasn't home, but it was purpose. And purpose, she'd learned, was sometimes all that stood between drowning and surviving. The first week without Eli nearly broke her. She'd wake in the night, listening for his breathing, reaching for a hand that wasn't there. Every child's cry sent her heart racing. Every dark-haired boy made her stop and stare, hoping. She'd lost a daughter. Then she'd lost Eli. And somewhere in the process, she'd started to believe that maybe love, for her, was just another word for temporary. But Sister Margaret, the orphanage director, had a way of seeing through pain to the person underneath. You're not here to hide, she'd said gently, after finding Maya crying in the supply closet. You're here to heal. And healing means showing up even when it hurts. So Maya showed up. She pushed open the door and immediately heard music. In the common room, a battered upright piano stood against the wall, and sitting at it, his small fingers moving carefully across yellowed keys, was Eli. Maya's breath caught, her hand flying to her mouth. He was playing. Actually playing. Not the simple melody she'd hummed, but something far more complex. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the notes precise and haunting. The kind of piece that took most students years to master. He played it perfectly. Every phrase, every dynamic, every moment of breathtaking beauty rendered with the kind of emotional maturity that shouldn't exist in an 8-year-old's hands. A prodigy. An absolute prodigy. "He showed up this morning," Sister Margaret said quietly, appearing at Maya's elbow. "Mr. Cole's driver brought him. Said the boy insisted on coming here. That he wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, just kept drawing pictures of this place until Mr. Cole finally agreed." "Is he staying?" Maya's voice came out strangled. "Mr. Cole said Eli could visit twice a week, for music lessons. We have a volunteer teacher who used to work at Juilliard." Sister Margaret's expression softened. "The boy asked for you specifically. Well, not asked. Wrote it down. Your name, over and over, until they understood." Maya's eyes burned. "He's speaking?" "No, but he's playing. Been at it for 2 hours, and child—" Sister Margaret shook her head in wonder. "I've never heard anything like it. It's like he's been playing his whole life." Maya walked slowly into the room. Eli's back was to her, his whole focus on the piano, on making something beautiful from grief. The music swelled, reaching its climax, not a dramatic explosion but a gentle release, like dawn breaking over quiet water. "That's lovely," she said softly, his hands stilled. He turned, and when he saw her, his face transformed, hope and relief and something like joy breaking through the careful walls he'd built. He slid off the piano bench and ran to her, throwing his arms around her waist. Maya knelt and held him close, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. I never wanted to leave you." Eli pulled back and pointed to the piano, then to his heart, then to Maya. The message was clear. Music. Heart. You! The things he loved. The things that kept him alive. "I know, baby," Maya whispered. "I know." Behind them, someone cleared their throat. Harrison stood in the doorway, looking uncertain in a way Maya had never seen. His expensive suit seemed out of place in this worn, humble building. But his eyes were finally open. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "The security audit took 72 hours and uncovered everything. Charlotte's laptop, her falsified email trail, the recordings she'd edited, saved in a hidden folder she'd forgotten to encrypt, the private investigators' invoices, the money she'd funneled from Harrison's accounts to offshore holdings, over $3 million across 2 years. Even the leaked Phantom 7 prototype, traced directly to her IP address, sold to a German competitor for $2 million. She hadn't just framed Maya. She'd betrayed the entire company, stolen trade secrets, committed fraud, and covered it all with a smile sharp enough to cut throats. But the worst discovery came last. Emails between Charlotte and a business rival, discussing not just the prototype, but a hostile takeover plan. She'd been positioning herself to destroy Cole Automotive from within, marry Harrison for control, then sell the company piece by piece. Harrison read the report 3 times, each pass making his hands shake harder. He'd almost destroyed something real because he'd trusted someone false. He'd learned all the wrong lessons from grief. Charlotte was arrested at the airport, bags packed for the Cayman Islands, attempting to flee before the audit completed. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The evidence was damning, irrefutable. She was sentenced to 15 years for corporate espionage, fraud, and embezzlement. But Charlotte never served a day. 3 months after sentencing, while out on bail pending appeal, she wrote a series of letters, one to Harrison, one to Maya, one to Grace's Light Foundation, with instructions for her lawyers to liquidate her remaining assets, approximately $8 million, and donate everything to the orphanage. The letter to Maya was brief. "I spent my life believing love was a transaction, that whoever had the most power controlled the narrative. I destroyed what you built with Harrison because I couldn't understand it. Couldn't believe someone would give without expecting payment. You won. Not because you're wealthier or smarter or more beautiful, but because you know how to love without keeping score. That's a currency I never learned. I tried to destroy love. Instead, love destroyed my hate, and I have nothing left but remorse. I'm sorry. The final letter, to the world, was found on the deck of a yacht she'd rented, anchored 3 miles off the coast of Big Sur. The boat was discovered empty at dawn, rocking gently in the waves. Charlotte's shoes sat neatly at the stern. Her phone lay beside them, the screen dark. No body was ever recovered. Some said she staged her death and disappeared to start over somewhere no one knew her name. Others believed the ocean took her. Final absolution for sins she couldn't undo. Harrison chose to believe she'd found peace, somewhere, somehow. Maya chose to believe in redemption, that even people who hurt us can change, can grow, can recognize the damage they've caused. The money funded a new wing at Grace Home Orphanage, the Charlotte Wynne Memorial Hall. A room for children learning music. A place where broken things could become beautiful. The drive to Grace Home Orphanage felt longer than it was. Harrison sat in the back seat, Eli beside him, staring at the drawing the boy had left on his desk. The 3 figures, torn apart by Charlotte's golden scissors, literally drawn into the image, her rendering of the villain clear even to a child's eyes. You tried to tell me, Harrison said quietly. I didn't listen. Eli looked up at him, solemn and patient. I'm sorry. The words felt rusty, unused for too long. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was doing the right thing. Eli reached over and took Harrison's hand, the first time he'd voluntarily touched him. The gesture broke something in Harrison's chest. He pulled the boy close, holding him the way he used to hold his son, the way he'd forgotten he knew how. We're going to make this right, he whispered. All of it. Maya was in the orphanage garden when she heard footsteps. She'd been planting flowers, bright, hardy things that could survive neglect and still bloom. Grace used to say that was the mark of real beauty, thriving despite the darkness. Ms. Jackson, she looked up. Harrison stood at the garden gate, uncertainty written across his usually controlled face. Mr. Cole. Harrison. He stepped forward. Please, I think we're past formality. Maya stood, brushing dirt from her knees. What are you doing here? I thought you wanted my money. I know. I was wrong. He pulled out a folder, handed it to her. The security audit. Charlotte forged everything. The recordings, the emails, all of it. She was embezzling, selling company secrets, and she decided you were a threat to her position. Maya opened the folder, scanning the evidence. Her hands trembled. She's been arrested, Harrison continued. Full cooperation with authorities. The company's pressing charges. She'll face decades in prison if convicted. And you believed her. Over me. I did. He didn't flinch from it. I've spent 10 years learning to trust no one, building walls, using wealth as armor. I thought I was protecting myself, but all I did was lock out everyone who might actually care. Maya closed the folder. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you an apology, a real one, not a severance check and a recommendation letter. Harrison's voice dropped. Because Eli hasn't eaten properly since you left. Because the house is silent again. Because I stood in my son's old nursery last night for the first time in a decade, and I realized something. What? That you were right. Grace wouldn't want this. My son wouldn't want this. They'd be ashamed of what I've become, this bitter, isolated man who learned all the wrong lessons from losing them. His eyes met hers, and Maya saw something she hadn't before. Not just regret. Not just apology. Vulnerability. Real, terrifying vulnerability. You gave me back a part of myself I thought was dead, Harrison said quietly. You showed me what this house could be, what I could be, if I stopped hiding behind grief and money. And I repaid you by choosing fear over trust. Harrison, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve it, but Eli needs you, and... He stopped, swallowed. And I need you. Not as an employee, not as a temporary solution, as someone who sees the man I used to be and believes he's still worth finding. Maya's throat tightened. You hurt me. I know. You chose to believe the worst of me instead of asking for the truth. I know that too. If I come back, it won't be the same. I won't be invisible. I won't pretend to be just staff while Eli and I rebuild what you broke. Harrison nodded slowly. I don't want you to be invisible. I want... He stopped, the words clearly difficult. I want you to be family, both of you, if you'll let me try to earn that. Maya studied him. This powerful man who'd finally learned that strength wasn't about walls, but about letting them come down. Eli drew something for you, she said finally. Did you bring it? Harrison pulled the drawing from his jacket. The torn figures. Maya took it, studied it for a long moment, then carefully tore off the section with Charlotte's scissors. What remained was just the 3 figures, the jagged line still separating them, but the weapon gone. You can't erase what you did, Maya said quietly. The tear is still there, but you can choose what comes next. You can let it stay torn, or you can find a way to mend it. She handed the drawing back. Harrison stared at it, then at her. How? One honest moment at a time. One choice that prioritizes truth over fear. One day of showing up instead of hiding. Maya's voice gentled. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick. But if you mean it, really mean it, then maybe we can find a way forward. I mean it, Harrison said immediately. Then prove it, not today, not with some grand gesture or expensive gift. Prove it by being the man Eli sees when he draws us all together. The man Grace fell in love with. The man your son knew before grief locked him away. Harrison nodded, clutching the torn drawing like a lifeline. Behind them, Eli appeared in the orphanage doorway, watching, waiting to see what the adults would choose. Maya held out her hand. Not to Harrison, but to the boy. Eli ran to her, and she lifted him up, holding him close. Then, slowly, she extended her free hand to Harrison. He took it carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. And for the first time in 10 years, Harrison Cole stood in a garden with people he loved and let himself believe in second chances. The weeks that followed were neither easy nor simple. Harrison didn't suddenly become warm. Maya didn't immediately trust. Eli didn't magically start speaking. But small changes accumulated like compound interest. Harrison began eating breakfast with them instead of hiding in his study. Maya stopped flinching when he entered a room. Eli started drawing new pictures, ones where the figures weren't torn, just standing close, learning how to connect. The house shifted, opened, breathed. Mrs. Chen started humming while she worked. The staff stopped walking on eggshells. Laughter echoed in hallways that had forgotten the sound. Harrison reopened the nursery. Not as a shrine, but as a room. They painted the walls together, all 3 of them. Eli chose yellow, bright, and warm. The color of hope, Maya said. The color of mourning. One evening, Harrison found Maya in Grace's garden, the one she'd restored from wilderness. I have something for you, he said. He handed her a frame. Inside was Eli's drawing, the torn one, but Harrison had mended it. Not with tape or glue, but with gold leaf, the Japanese art of kintsugi, making breaks beautiful. The 3 figures were reconnected now, the golden seams visible but transformed into something stronger than the original. On the frame, in Harrison's precise handwriting, I won't cut it again. Maya's breath caught. Harrison. I know we're not there yet, he said quietly. I know I have to earn back what I broke. But I wanted you to know. I'm committed to this. To us. However long it takes. Maya traced the golden seams with her finger, feeling tears prick her eyes. There's more, Harrison said. He pulled out another envelope. Not severance this time, but something else. Legal papers. Adoption forms for Eli. And below them a trust document establishing Grace's Light Foundation with full funding, Maya named as director. I can't replace your daughter, Harrison said, and this won't heal that wound. But maybe together we can make sure other children like Eli, have somewhere safe to land when the world falls apart. Maya's vision blurred. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Not because I'm trying to buy forgiveness, but because it's right. Because Grace would want this. Because you were trying to build this dream alone, and you shouldn't have to. He stepped closer, careful, giving her space to retreat if needed. I'm falling in love with you, Harrison said. The words were quiet, almost frightened. I fought it, told myself it was just gratitude or loneliness or some kind of transference. But it's not. It's you. Your strength, your kindness, the way you see the best in broken things and refuse to give up on them. Maya looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Harrison. You don't have to say it back. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. So you understand that when I promise to do better, to be better, it's not obligation. It's love. For a long moment they stood in the garden, surrounded by blooming roses and healing silence. Then Maya reached up and touched his face. Gentle. I'm falling too, she whispered. I tried not to. Told myself it was impossible, that we came from different worlds. But love doesn't care about logic. And you're not the man I met at the police station. You're becoming the man you were always meant to be. Harrison's hand covered hers, holding it against his cheek. Stay, he said. Not as staff. Not as someone I'm paying. Stay as family. As partner. As us, Maya finished. He kissed her then, soft and careful. A question and a promise. She kissed him back, tasting salt and hope and the beginning of something true. Inside the house, Eli stood at the window, watching them, and for the first time since the cemetery, since the terror and the rain and the endless silence, he smiled. 10 years later. The auditorium at Graywood Center for Music and Arts was packed. Parents, teachers, donors, and children filled every seat. But in the front row, 3 people sat together, hands clasped, watching the stage with hearts full of pride and impossible joy. Eli Cole walked out to the piano, 17 now and tall, with his mother's warm smile and his father's quiet strength. He'd found his voice years ago, not through words first, but through music, the language he'd been speaking all along. Tonight, he was premiering his first full composition. The title, written in the program, Grace's Garden. Maya squeezed Harrison's hand as Eli settled at the piano. Nervous? Harrison murmured. Proud, she corrected. The music began, soft at first, like a lullaby hummed in darkness. Then it grew, building through loss and fear and the slow, painful climb toward light. The melody wove together threads of grief and hope, remembering and releasing, tearing and mending. It was the story of 3 people who found each other in the rain, who learned that family isn't born. It's chosen, fought for, built from honest moments and imperfect grace. Who discovered that the most beautiful things are often the ones that know how to heal. Maya leaned her head on Harrison's shoulder, listening to their son play his heart into existence. Harrison's arm came around her, steady and sure, and he pressed a kiss to her temple. Grace would have loved this, he whispered. She does, Maya said. Somewhere. the music swelled, reaching its climax. Not a dramatic explosion, but a gentle release, like dawn breaking over quiet water. The sound of morning. The sound of home. After the concert, they walked through the gardens at Greywood Manor. No longer a monument to loss, but a living, thriving testament to what comes after grief. Grace's roses bloomed everywhere. The fountain ran clear. Children from Grace's Light Foundation played on the lawn, their laughter rising like prayers answered. "Did you ever imagine this?" Maya asked, her hand in Harrison's. "That night at the cemetery?" Harrison considered. "No, I'd stopped imagining anything beyond the next hour, the next day. I was just surviving." "And now?" He looked at Eli running ahead with some of the younger children, looked at Maya beside him, looked at the house that had finally become a home. "Now I'm living." Far away, in a small coastal town no one could name, a letter washed up on the shore. The envelope was weathered, the ink barely legible, but the words were clear. "To Grace's Light Foundation, I tried to destroy love because I didn't believe it existed anymore. I thought wealth was power and control was safety. I was wrong about everything. This donation represents every asset I had left. Use it for the children. Give them what I never learned to accept, that being loved is more valuable than being envied. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I can't undo it. But maybe someone else can build something beautiful from the rubble I left behind." Charlotte Wynne. The letter drifted back into the waves, carried out to sea. By morning it was gone. But the donation had arrived weeks earlier, and 20 more children had beds, meals, music lessons, and staff who taught them that broken things can still bloom. Maya stood at Grace's grave, the one that started everything, and placed fresh flowers on the marble. "Thank you," she whispered, "for the garden, for the music, for showing us that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story." Harrison appeared beside her, Eli between them. The boy, no longer a boy but not quite a man, looked at the gravestone thoughtfully. "Do you think she knows?" he asked quietly. His voice still held the careful quality of someone who'd once lost language and learned how hard-won every word could be. "Your mother?" Harrison said. "Yes. I think she knows. I think she's been watching this whole time, waiting for us to figure out what she already understood." "What's that?" Maya smiled. "That the people we lose never really leave. They live in the gardens we tend, the songs we sing, the love we choose to give even when it's terrifying." "And the people we save," Harrison added, his arm around both of them. "They save us right back." That night, as fireflies danced in the garden and stars appeared one by one over Greywood Manor, 3 people sat on the back porch, wrapped in blankets and each other's warmth. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Sometimes the most important moments are the quiet ones, the ones where you realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly who you're supposed to be with. The house glowed with light behind them. Inside, more children would arrive tomorrow. Foster kids, orphans, the lost and the looking. Grace's Light Foundation had grown beyond anything Maya had dreamed, beyond what grief had almost destroyed. But it wasn't the building that mattered, or the money, or even the programs. It was this: the knowledge that kindness compounds, that trust can be rebuilt, that love, real, imperfect, chosen love, is the most motivational force in a wounded world. It was knowing that somewhere out there, someone else stood in the rain, wondering if they were worth saving. And somewhere else, someone stepped forward and said yes. Always yes. Sometimes, the people we rescue in our darkest moments are mirrors, sent to remind us that healing is possible, that grace exists, that the living are still worth saving. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, they stay. They become home. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs reminding that broken things can bloom again. These heartwarming stories are here every night, because we all deserve to believe in second chances. Until tomorrow, may you find your garden. May you find your grace.